Hello and welcome to Mike's Arts and Crafts. I'm Libby and today I'll be starting a new series which is card making for beginners. I will be starting this on my channel and hopefully I will have a lot of videos for you on various different card making things. Today I'm going to show you how to make your first card if you are a beginner, and I'm going to take you step by step through the whole process. I'll show you the whole process of making a very inexpensive and simple cards for you today. So this is a very long video and you can speed it up if you need to, or slow it down even if you want to do that. So yeah. To get started, I have an A2 size guide for you, which I will leave a link down in the description box for you. I will hopefully have some sort of guide for each of these videos to just help you along in the card making process. So this is for a US A2 size card. There's several other card sizes out there for you, but this is a great place to start if you're new. This is 5.5 by 4.25 inches, and this is a letter size piece of cardstock, which is 8.5 inches by 11 inches. If you cut this in half, you can get 2 card bases either way you cut it. So I have the 2 ways you can cut it indicated in different colors. The teal will be a side folding card, which will open up like a book from the side, and you will cut it at 5.5 and then score it at 4.25, which I will talk about in a minute. For a top folding card, that will open from the bottom to the top, and that is indicated in this orangish pink color, and you will cut at 4.25 and score at 5.5. The cut lines are indicated by the bold solid lines, and they will be indicated based on the color for which card you're trying to make. The score lines are the dashed lines, and they are also indicated in color so that you can cut them how you need to. Lastly, the A2 size panel sizes are the white boxes with the black outline, and I just have some measurements for you. These are some nice panel sizes to put on the front of your card, and it just gives you easy measurements to cut at. I have 2 separate ones in the bottom left corner and the top right corner for you, so that you can easily see all those guides. This is really nice to have if you're a beginner or not. So yeah, you can see I have 5 cards here that I will be using to show you the 4 elements of a card. I think all of these or most of these I have done a video on, so I will link that in the upper right corner if you are interested in that part. In like the making of these cards, but I just wanted to go over some of the elements of the card. There are 4 elements of a card, which I start with sentiment. So you can see this one has a nice sentiment on here. They all have sentiments. They all have actually pretty similar sentiments. These 4 have the same sentiments, and then this one has a very, very large and bold sentiment. It also has a sub-sentiment with it. So yeah, I think sentiments are very, very important when it comes to cards. I know there's some people who don't put sentiments on certain cards, but I think it's really an essential piece because it's the main message you're trying to send the person, and it just really, really makes a big difference when you have a sentiment on the card. I think it just finishes the card off really, really nicely. So I think sentiments are a key part to that. The next part I want to talk about is the background. I think every card has a background. Most of them are typically subtle. I'll start with a subtle one here. Most of them are pretty subtle. I use a cover plate die on this. I'm hoping to do a die cutting video in the future, but for right now I used a cover plate on this one, and then I used white cardstock and layered it up for this background. So it is white on white cardstock, which makes it really, really subtle. You can see here that it is a very, very subtle background, and you can't really tell it's there very much, and it looks like it's really not an important piece of this card, but this background is actually really, really important, and without it there it would look really, really plain. The backgrounds just really, really help elevate it a little bit. These 2 have the same type of background here. I have used embossing folders, which I'm hoping to do a video on as well. I've used an embossing folder to just give really, really subtle texture in the background of this card, and it really does add a lot to this card. The subtle embossing in the background really, really elevates these cards a lot, even though it's a really, really subtle piece. So here's another background. This one is stamped in the background here. And it just plays a really, really important role in this card. It is like a color scheme for the card, so it really adds a lot of interest. And this one, you can tell, definitely plays a big role in this card. So yeah. And then the last background here I have is this one. I have ice cream cone die cuts on the back, and then I've ink blended over top of it. And this background's kind of the star of the show for this card, so this one is a really, really important one. But this is a really, really important background in this card. But yeah, so there's kind of 4 backgrounds, and you can see how they play into different cards a little bit. Next, I'm going to talk about, let's talk about the focal point. So I'm going to start with a very, very obvious focal point. So this focal point is obviously the hand. It is this hand die cut or ephemera piece, and you can clearly see that it is the center piece of this card. And I think a focal point is really, really important because it is the first thing your eye sees when you look at a card. So yeah, this is definitely very, very important to the card and stuff. So yeah, this one has a very, very obvious focal point, as well as this one. This one is the nice big ink blended floral image here on the front. It plays a really, really big role in this card, as you can see. These ones have less obvious focal points. So a focal point can look like a sentiment. In this case, this focal point is a sentiment. You can see that it has sparkle embossing powder, and this is a cool tone color in comparison to the warm tones in the background. So that's really what makes this focal point stand out. And yeah, but sentiments can definitely be focal points, which you'll see later when we make our card. Here, this background is specifically the pattern paper in the background. The focal point is, you can see that it has a lot of bold colors and just is really in your face and really fun. So you can even find focal points in like backgrounds and stuff. This one also, the background is the focal point of this card. It's very, very bold, and it's definitely the star of the show on this card. So yeah. Lastly, the last element is dimension. I think all cards should have dimension. Even if they're 1-layer cards, you can add dimension in many, many ways. I'm just going to go over it really quickly through each of these cards. So there's dimension several ways on this card. There is a border. I think borders are really, really important. They ground the card. Now, not all cards have borders. As you can see, this one doesn't here, but I think borders are really, really important to most cards. They really, really help ground the card and bring it together. It like just finishes off. You can see this panel is embossed, which adds texture. I have also raise this panel a little bit. I have foam tape on this little image here, the focal point, and then I have used embellishments. I think embellishments are really, really important as well because they just add that texture and that dimension to a card. We'll go with this one next. This one has a nice layered up background here with the cover die. We have embellishments on here. I have popped up our nice floral image, and yeah, this one also has a nice dimensional ink blending on the floral image, which adds dimension as well. For this one, we have dimension because we have our border, and then we have layered several pieces of cardstock together. We have a foil cardstock, and then our panel, and then the card base, which all add up into dimension. So there's foil elements throughout this card. We also have embellishments here, and you can see that the ink blending as well as the die cuts add a lot of texture and dimension to this card as well. For this one has a nice border to it, and we have layered this panel up with some dimension here. I have a lot of different patterns in the background here, as well as foiled elements throughout this card. We also have the embossed panel on this one. And then this one, we have popped this panel up as well. We have used many different colors in the background. There's embellishments all over. We have popped up this sentiment. There's like sparkly bits to this card as well, which also adds to that dimension. So here are all the cards that I showed you just really quick. And the 4 elements are the sentiment, the focal point, the background, and the and dimension on the cards. So yeah, all right, let's get to making your first card. So I am using pattern paper today. Pattern paper tends to be pretty cheap. You can often get it on sale at some big craft stores, and it's really easy to find, especially as a beginner card maker. And everything is prepped for you, so you don't need a lot of materials to use it. I like the 6x8 pattern papers, which are these ones, or 6x6 pattern papers like this, because it's easier to use and it tends to be cheaper. So yeah, so it's easy to use. Another thing that I recommend as a beginner is some ephemera packs. So this is from Hobby Lobby, the paper studio. They're really, really cheap, and you can get them at big craft stores. This one has like 100 pieces in it, and it includes sentiments and different images that are all prepped and ready for you, so that it's easy and simple to make your first card, but you also don't need a lot of supplies, so it's really inexpensive. So pattern paper and ephemera are 2 great options when you're starting card making. I am also not on voiceover today. I am doing this card and speaking at the same time, so that you can get the whole process, especially as a new card maker. So if you have some experience and don't want to sit through this whole thing, you can either speed it up or skip through some parts. But yeah, I wanted to give the full experience to some beginners. So I'm going to be using these 3 papers today. I'll start with these 3 papers, and yeah, but I have used this pattern paper set before, so that's why it looks like it's been used. So we're going to start by, let's cut down some of our panels here. So I'm going to be using a ruler. This is how I started. When I started card making, I started by using a ruler and some scissors, and I just would cut down my pieces of pattern paper to be the right size. So yeah, I'm going to create a border on my card so that we can add dimension. So let's do a 1/2 inch border. So I'm going to do 3 3/4 inches wide, and then for our height we will do let's do so we have a 5.5 card, so that would be 5 inches if we're gonna have a 1/2 inch border. I'm just gonna draw lines along this so that I know that I'm cutting straight. This is a T-square ruler. This one's really, really nice because it helps you line up the edge, but you could even use just a basic ruler. There's a lot of options out there. So I didn't get this line exactly lined up, but that's okay. We'll just cut about in the middle of those 2 lines, and hopefully that will be good. So I've just drawn with a pencil on the back of my pattern paper where I need to cut, and then I'll just use my scissors. You can also use a paper trimmer that looks something like this. This is a guillotine one. There are many great ones on the market. This is what I suggest as a very, very beginner, is the We Are Memory Keepers all-in-one tool. It has like stamping abilities, hole punch. You can even make an envelope. Mine's broken, but you can make an envelope on here. You have the paper trimmer and the scoreboard to make card bases, and yeah, there's just like a lot of options with this board, and it's kind of has everything, or a lot of the tools for card making. So that's what I recommend as a very beginner, and then you can get into those paper trimmers and more advanced tools. But I'm going to be a very, very beginner today, and I'm just going to cut with some scissors. We're going to go right in the middle of these 2 lines today. Alright, so then I have some scraps here that I can put off to the side. We can make a card later with that. Next, I'm going to take this piece of paper and we're going to cut it down as well. I'm going to make this one, let's see. So this was 5 and this one was 5. So let's do like 2 inches for this one. We'll do 2 inches in height. And we want the width to be the same. So that was 3 and 3 and 3.75 here. Then I'm just going to draw these lines to just kind of help connect them, and so that it will make my cutting easier. I have a guide to follow. So once I have that, I might even trim this piece down. So we're gonna go for this one, we're gonna do, so we have 2 inches, so we'll just cut off 2 inches here. Just gonna mark that. So we'll make it, actually we can just keep it like this. This will be fine and it's gonna work. I'm going to just cut this piece here. Cut right along those marks. And then we have a little piece that can go on the bottom here. That will help our card as well. I have a little piece here that got torn, but that's okay because we're going to cover it up. Next I'm going to bring in this little block stamp. These you can find pretty cheap at craft stores and they're often on sale, so it's pretty nice. I'm also going to bring in this piece of pattern paper here. I'm also going to bring in some ink. This is from Simon Says Stamp, but you can get a lot of different kinds of inks at various different craft stores that are often on sale. So I suggest checking there as a beginner to save on costs and just get familiar with a bunch of different supplies before you buy some. But if you are looking for a long-term ink, I really like this Simon Says Stamp Intense Black one. I'm just going to choose an area to stamp in. I kind of like this area right here. So we're just going to stamp and press really hard to make sure that we get a good impression. This is looking pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's going to work. I'm just going to trim the excess pattern paper from around it off so we don't have to worry about that. And then I'm going to just come in and we're going to fussy cut this image. So that is just going right around the line of the image. I often still do this today. Some stamps out there will have, or a lot of the stamps out there will have coordinating dies for you, so that you can easily cut them out on a die cutting machine. Those tend to be more expensive, and the dies are very expensive too, so fussy cutting is a great way around that. While it might not be perfect, it works, and I often fussy cut even now as a crafter. So yeah, in Card Maker I still fussy cut a lot of my images to avoid the costs of dies. So yeah, it's pretty simple. This is not a complicated image to cut around. I'm just going right around and I'm leaving a slight border around the outline of the image, just following the lines the stamp made. And we are finished here. So this I will just place right on there. That looks good. So I'm just gonna place this over here. I'm also gonna come in with a stamp to do my stamping, but often sets will have pre-made, or pattern paper will have pre-made sentiments. I just don't have any. I used a lot of them up. We'll see if this one does. Not really, but a lot of the pattern papers out there will have pre-made sentiments for you so that it's really, really easy. But this is a fairly cheap and inexpensive stamp set because it is small, so I'm going to use this today. We're going to do, let's see here. Maybe we will do Simple I Love You for this card, and I'm just going to set this one off to the side. I also have an acrylic block here, but if you have the We Are Memory Keepers all-in-one tool, that's a great one as well that has a stamp positioner on it. I also love the Misty stamping tool, but it does get pretty expensive, so I suggest starting with the We Are Memory Keepers all-in-one tool. So we're actually going to come and stamp this in just a minute. I'm going to put all these things together. Today I will be using a glue stick, which I actually used to use all the time. They're really, really cheap. I'm just using one from Elmer's. Actually, really quick, I want to suggest something, and we're just going to add this. So this is just really, really thin cardboard. This one's from a cereal box, but a lot of people have this around their house from various different food boxes and stuff like that. And I really, really like it for dimension. It's a very, very cheap option out there, as most dimensional like foam tapes and different things can be pretty expensive, but this tends to be fairly cheap. So I like to use this, and it's nice for our planet as well. I just cut it down to fit what I need, and I will just glue it onto the back to give a little bit of dimension to my cards. So once I have that, we're just going to cover this in Elmer's glue, and I can just align it with the bottom of this panel here. And you can see that it gives just a little bit of dimension to our card. I'm also going to add a little bit of dimension to our flower here. So I'm going to use some of these here. We're going to do 2 layers for this bottom section. So just want to make sure that I have the bottom here. So that will be kind of down in this area. We're going to add 1 here, and then I'm just going to add some more glue on top of that and add the second one. And then we're going to do 3 layers up here so that it's even. We're just going to trim off a little bit like this. I just use like little scrap pieces and stuff, and that kind of helps me. So then I will just add the glue, and we can add this piece here. I'm going to get some more of this here, and I'm just going to trim it down to meet our needs. It's really, really easy to use. This is as well. I didn't know this at the time, and so I invested in a lot of foam tape and stuff, but yes. Or I would just do flat cards, but I love the look of dimensional cards, and I think it's a really, really great and cheap option to get that look. Another adhesive you could use is liquid glue. There's lots of liquid glues out there. I use the Bearly Arts liquid glue. It tends to be a little bit more expensive than glue sticks, I find, but it's also another pretty cheap option. And then we'll just add that here, I think. We'll add that there, and then we can add our little sentiment in just a moment. Yeah, I like that right there. So we're gonna just add some glue here, and I'm just gonna make sure we'll just align it on there. Another cheaper dimensional option is foam squares from the dollar store specifically, or foam tape from the dollar store. I used that for a very, very long time. Here's the foam squares. I don't have the foam tape on hand, but that's another great option if you are looking for a cheaper option. Next, I think we're going to stamp our little sentiment right here, I think. Just stamp it right there. So I'm going to bring back our black ink. You can do many different colors of ink if you would like. I just thought I'd go with 1 ink to keep it cheap for you guys. I'm just going to stand up. That will help me to align this stamp as straight as possible, and then I'll just press down. And it stamped pretty nicely. So I just added that, and then let's bring in a card base. I like to use really thick cardstock from Hobby Lobby, and I just get it on sale, but it's really, really thick and really nice for card bases. Just because actually we can measure it out. So I'm going to create a side folding card base today. So to do that, I'm just going to mark at 5.5 along the 11-inch side. And I'm just going to do that. And then you can just trim right along that line. With your scissors. You can also get a little bit thinner white cardstock from Hobby Lobby as well, for even cheaper if you want. I suggest if you don't have a scoreboard that you use that. I'm just gonna erase some of these pencil marks just to make it a little bit easier, or a little bit of a nicer card base. And then I'm going to bring in my scoreboard for this because this is a really, really thick cardstock that I'm using here. And I'm going to score at 4.25 inches. Whoa, my score got a little out of hand, but that's okay. If you have a thinner piece of cardstock, then you can just fold it to create a nice card. This is a little bit off, but that's okay because I can just use my scissors to trim off the extra here. It's not perfect, but it's going to work. And then we can just add this to the front of our card. I'll use the glue stick again. Glue sticks work just fine for this. And I'm going to just line this up in the center here of this panel. And we can just press down to secure it in place. It's nice because glue sticks give you just a little bit of room to wiggle if it's not perfect. The last thing I'm going to do is add a few embellishments just to step it up a little bit here. I'm going to start by using a little pink heart. You can get jewel pickers, which have a little wax tip on the end that can help you pick up and place your embellishments. But you can also just use your hand. I used my hand for a very, very long time. I just recently got a jewel picker. But these hearts are very, very cheap at Michael's. They're from the Recollections line, and they're very, very cheap. My glue is a little bit, it's not working super well. So I'm just gonna unclog it really quick. I find I like liquid glue for embellishments, so I'm gonna use liquid glue here. And I will just pick that up with my finger, and we're gonna just place this little heart onto the dot of glue. I will show you this. It comes with white, red, and pink, and it's really, really cheap for what you get. You get a lot of them. I have not replaced mine yet. I'm also going to use these little sequins here. These sequins I also got at Michael's, and they're a very, very cheap option again. Very inexpensive. I use these ones all the time. I find for embellishments that we like odd numbers, so I like to do a group of 3 and then a group of 2, which will total out to 5 embellishments. Another thing that our eye likes is triangles. So if you place them in a triangle figuration, then that's another really, really great option. So I'm just going to add my embellishments in here. And just down here, I'm just gonna, we're gonna add that into place. And then, yeah. So this is our finished card here. You have completed your first card. Yay. I will go over the elements here in just a moment with you so that you can see all the elements of a card. Another thing I wanted to note is that your cards might not look crazy or anything like this card here. A lot of materials and money went into this card, and there's just a lot here, but I've been doing card making for several years now, so while this one's still more simple, it's still very, very beautiful, and you just have to enjoy the journey and where you are at, and just know that you will grow and learn and just get more talented as well. So I have picked up all of those, so let's just go over all the elements. So we have our sentiment here, and then we have our background, which is our patterned paper, and then we have our focal point, which is our nice beautiful flower that we stamped, and we also have dimension. We popped up this panel as well as the flower. We have embellishments. Our pattern paper also came with a foil element, which is another element of dimension, and we also have a border. So this is the completed card, and you've created your first card. Congratulations! Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and come back next week for a new video. If you are interested in any of the supplies I used today, check the description box below. For more inspiration, please consider liking and subscribing, and for even more inspiration, check out my Instagram and Pinterest accounts at Meister Arts and Crafts. Thank you so much again. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.